Welcome. We'll get started in about a minute or so, but thank you for attending. We have an exciting agenda today. We're going to be talking about getting peace of mind for managing and protecting your data with Wasabi and Arcserve. When you think about data security, ransomware, all that stuff, it can give you a lot of heartburn, indigestion, and anxiety, but we're going to be talking about the ways that we partner together to help you address that and be successful in this tough environment. So we'll start in just a minute. For those who have not been on the Bright Talk platform, there is the opportunity for you to ask questions. And we will, if nothing else, get to them at the very end because we want to make sure that we answer any questions you have. But also, if it's relevant to where we are in the presentation and that we can maybe add some additional value, we may be able to pick them up then too. Okay, with that, let's get started. Again, welcome. My name is Rob Callaghan. I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager at Wasabi. I'm joined by Stacey Budd. As I jokingly say, I'm the looks and he's the brains. So even though we don't have our cameras on there, you'll be able to just pretend. And we're again talking about getting peace of mind for managing and protecting your data with Wasabi and Arcserve. Just sort of a brief agenda of what we're going to be covering today. As I said, we're with our partner Arcserve, the world's most experienced data protection company. I'll say it with my radio voice. We're going to talk about first immutable cloud storage and the protection that offers and the peace of mind. We're going to talk about Arcserve's unified data resilience platform. And of course, Arcserve UDP 9.0, leveraging cloud scale object storage for your backups. I'd like to say we want to get a word from our sponsor, and that's us. Wasabi, today's presentation is brought to you by Wasabi, the world's hottest cloud storage. Wasabi provides predictable, simple, affordable hot cloud storage for businesses all over the world. We enable storage organizations to store and instantly access an unlimited amount of data at about a fifth the price of the traditional hyperscalers. And there's no complex tiers, complex price lists, or unpredictable egress fees. So the bill that you think you're going to get is the bill you get. We're trusted by tens of thousands of customers worldwide and have been recognized as one of technology's fastest growing and most visionary companies. We cover many verticals, including backup, archive, surveillance, scientific research, healthcare, law enforcement, some cool sports teams, and media and entertainment. Wasabi is thrilled to partner with Arcserve to help our mutual customers secure their data and mitigate the threat of ransomware. Again, some of the value we talked about there again, and I won't belabor it, is the fact that when you do utilize us, you're not paying for any of those fees that are traditionally come from the three-letter acronym and other companies we can't talk about today. So with that, I'm going to finish building the slide out, having a little there. Some of the things that are really neat about this, though, is that we do have, high performance. So we are significantly faster than traditional S3 object storage that you get from the bookseller. We have 11 nines of data durability. So when you do go get your data, you can be assured that the data is going to be there and with no issues with it. And then finally, we have the ability to scale to your needs in the capacity and the regions. With that, I'm going to go back and I'm going to turn it over to both Stacey to introduce himself and talk about Arcserve.
All right, thanks. So just taking a minute to introduce myself. I don't know why I'm speaking so loud all of a sudden, but when it comes to my experience in the industry, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I am more of a technical perspective person. Do presentations, do installations, do demos of the product, those kind of things. That's where kind of my experience within that. I've worked much of this time in the industry with Arcserve. Okay, or not always for Arcserve, but with Arcserve in one way or another. Arcserve is one of the, if not the oldest, data protection companies out there, getting its start, in '83. If anybody remembers the old Novell days and those kind of things, of course, we've progressed since then. We've modernized all of that. You don't stay in this industry if you don't continue to move forward within that. So we have definitely modernized from that. What we bring to the table is of course that knowledge, right? As we've seen in the environments change and those kind of things, we bring that knowledge forward. And then what we're going to talk about today is definitely our data resilience platform, our three pillars that make that up, and what are those pillars? And then, of course, bringing the right solutions to the table for you to be able to protect your ever-changing kind of landscape of an environment, right? Whether it be SaaS data, whether it be on-prem data, whether it be virtual, physical, whatever it might be, being able to have the right solutions to kind of handle those different environments that you have from that perspective. All of that wrapped up, of course, in affordable ways where you can license it in ways that kind of make sense for you. Okay. Some organizations need more of CapEx versus OpEx kind of licensing. Some organizations need to license by amount of data. Some organizations by perhaps sockets or different things like that. We have a lot of flexible licensing options for you so that we can definitely make that a custom fit for you, if you will.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember Novell back in the days and Banyan Vines and all those things that no one else knows about anymore. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about sort of what the reasoning for this presentation of technology. And we're going to talk about technology to protect and store and keep immutable your data, because there's a lot of bad actors out there. And the interesting statistics that have come up is, for example, 76% of ransomware attacks were started outside of business hours. I don't think, myself included, want to come in the morning and realize they've been at it for hours and hours, and how much damage they've done and where they're at. That's one of those things that can lead to, as I say, a resume generating event. There's many types of ways they do that. They do it, phishing. They do it through links and clicks and stuff like that. They attack your remote servers. So a majority of those are there, but there's also ones where that third-party contractor comes in and has access and says something as simple as, I want to plug my laptop in your network. And the IT person says, oh, you have antivirus? Yes. And all of a sudden now you are at risk because they had something either on purpose or they didn't know on their computer, and now it just bypassed all your security. There's things like configured cloud instances, remote desktop protocol, RDP stuff. And then, of course, the famous, although not as important today or not as prevalent, USB media, where they would, you go to a trade show and you grab a USB, you find one in the parking lot and you say, oh, it's on it. And now you're compromised. Additionally, what are the impacts of when that happens? People think that if I pay the ransom, I'm going to get my money back. Beyond the fact that in some places it's illegal to do that, we're finding that 35% of that data, when it comes back and is unencrypted based on the key they give you, is corrupt. So now you've lost a big chunk of that data loss. And so what that leads to is a lot of things. It leads to a lot of times leadership turnover. There's a recent article that we looked at where they talked about the fact that CISOs are not staying in their jobs or careers very long because of the stress of thinking about, when am I going to be attacked? Because in the old days, it used to be if, now it's just when. And so when there's an attack, somebody's going to be the fall person. And 32% of those organizations have a leadership change at the top when that happens. And then business disruption. Even if you have all the things we're going to talk about today, you need a plan, because it could take upwards of 20 days to get back everything, even if it is mutable and stored and you can recover it all. 20 days to resume your business. Can you afford that? There was a great research paper that was actually commissioned by Arcserve from a company called Dimensional Research that said only 24% of global businesses even have a DR plan to deal with that. And so you think, not me. and then it happens, and you're like, oh me, oh me, oh me, because now you are brought the whole company down. And I've been at companies when that's happened, and it's devastating. So tomorrow you wake up, you find out everything is gone. What do you do? How do you address that? What steps can you take today? I love this slide. It's not typically the mask guy like in the movies behind a computer, but there's lots of different ways it can happen. I just like that image. But one of the ways you can do that is protecting your data with immutable storage. In the old days, best practices was the 3-2-1. It still is, but we've added another one. So that is 3 copies of your data, 1 primary and 2 backups, 2 stored locally, different types of media, whether it's tape, whether it's NAS, local drive, whatever, and then 1 offsite. Again, that typically was in a secured storage location. In the old days, it was in Iron Mountain, but today it's typically in a cloud, S3 object storage. But what we've added to there is 1 copy immutable, because the bad guys have gotten smarter. They wait till longer from the infection point to actually triggering the ransomware. So you have to go back farther into your backups to find a good, clean copy. And they will do things knowing that you will do that. They'll try to delete those backups first. Before they ever infect your main systems, they'll go and try to destroy, delete, whatever. And by utilizing immutable storage, you help solve that problem. Hold on 1 second here. Keep trying to hit the button. You have to use this one. Okay. So with Wasabi, we have S3 Object Lock, and it protects against that ransomware. It's built for scale, durability, and security compliance. It helps with a lot of the regulatory agencies that require that. Some of them, the SEC's got a few, the financial industry regulatory, FINRA's got one, and then CFTC, which is the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, has some. And by utilizing and leveraging that immutability with Object Lock, you can meet the requirements and further protect your data. So you can, and the neat thing is that we talked about this, is that when you look and are you utilizing object storage, what people don't always realize is the cost from a traditional hyperscaler to store it can be far outweighed by the cost to access it, to make calls to it and stuff. And so one of the great things about Wasabi is there's no charge for egress. You're not going to have to pay every time you want to pull a copy to look for a known good copy. That can far exceed the cost of storage. You don't have to pay for every time you make a call to do a list or to do a gets and puts and things like that. It's included. And that's a great thing, because you can create run books to prepare for that DR scenario. You can test recovery, and you're not paying a financial penalty that you didn't count on or account for. And so, as I like to say, is that the way we do things is sort of CFO approved, meaning that when you go in there, you know how much you're going to store, and if you're going to have an extra copy somewhere else, and the cost for that, and you can budget for it. But you're not going to get this surprise bill at the end of the month with all these additional charges that were never planned on and they were never budgeted for. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my buddy here.
Thanks, Rob. And I would say a lot of that too speaks to peace of mind, right? So you've got to have peace of mind when it comes to your data, right? If it's in the cloud, knowing that there's no hidden cost or no unplanned costs for getting that data back, those kind of things. And I hope as I go through and talk about Arcserve, we're going to continue to speak about peace of mind, right? The ability to be confident, right, in your data as far as that goes. When we talk about, I said, I've been in this industry a long time, longer than I like to think of. I was just looking at the calendar and I was like, wow, I didn't quite realize it had been that long. But I remember the days when, a terabyte was a lot of data, right? So as far as that goes, heck, I remember even, prior to that, to be honest with you, but, then we went to petabytes, right? Then we went to exabytes, right? And so forth. And now we're up to zettabytes of data that's out there. And, we're going to have hundreds of zettabytes, according to the industry experts here, in just a few years. To put that in perspective, I was watching another presentation and I never really thought of it this way, but To put that in perspective, 1 zettabyte is supposed to represent all the grains of sands, right, in the beaches on the planet, right? So if you can think about that, it's kind of amazing that it's that amount of data is 1 zettabyte, and we're talking about hundreds of zettabytes out there that need to be protected. That's out there, in the world, right? As this, and it just exponentially keeps exploding, right? It just, I don't know what comes after zettabytes, but I'm sure, and within 5 years, we're probably going to be finding out what comes after zettabytes, and we'll be talking about terabytes, like joking about them from that perspective. That exponential growth of that unstructured data, your document data, your pictures, your videos, those kind of things, right? Your unstructured data, right? That is really kind of what a lot of times, keeps people up at night, because how do we manage this? How do we protect that data? That's what, different um, organizations, right, are after, to encrypt, to delete, to damage, to put you over, a barrel, to make you have to pay to be able to get that data back, from that perspective. So we have more data to secure. So we start getting we start adding different storage. Now we have different storage to manage. It gets harder for you to manage. Then you have to protect that data. You have to protect it with different security solutions. You have to protect it with different backup solutions, multiple locations. It can become a lot, and it can become overwhelming on how to do all that. And at any piece of that puzzle, right? Securing the data, managing the data, protecting the data. If there's a kink in any of those, right, then you become kind of at risk from that perspective. So it's easy, right? Unfortunately, for there to be some type of event or something like that. So it's not a matter of if, but when. Unfortunately, from that perspective, we can go ahead and advance.
It's a Yoda bite, even though I don't even know how much that is, but it's a Yoda bite's next.
All right, there you go. I don't think I'll forget that one. Okay. So we started seeing this trend, a number of years ago, probably 10 years ago now, if I think back to it. But it's really when, you know, um, hackers and criminal organizations, started to really target backup systems, right? Because they realized that, if we could go in and get rid of the backup data, then their customer, right, is what they refer to everybody as, is more likely to pay them for the service, and they do view it as a service of unencrypting your data. Okay, and if you've never seen or had the privilege of seeing one of these ransomware notifications, they're really apologetic, and they're just trying to do you a favor of unencrypting your data. Now, of course, that they encrypted, but let's not focus on that.
Wait, I like that the privilege of seeing one of those. I don't ever want to see one of those.
Yeah. When we also talk about immutability, right? I'm gonna steal my thunder from another slide here in a moment, but think about it's not only certifications that are requiring immutability and those kind of things, but it's also cyber insurance is starting to require that your data be immutable so that you can get that back, right? And either you pay more for cyber insurance, or you may not even be able to get a cyber insurance. So keep that in mind as well as we speak to things like immutability. It's to protect your backups. It's to protect your data, right? From ransomware, not just ransomware, of course. So there's other things that could happen to your data, but ransomware is the one that impacts the most data, right? From that perspective, the most common, right, requirement to restore something like that's human error, right? Somebody deletes something or something like that, but that doesn't tend to be something that's going to keep you up all night long, whereas a ransomware attack is going to impact your entire environment. And by the way, those bad actors have been in your environment for 90 days, 120 days. They have been in there learning the environment, right, as far as that goes. So they don't just all of a sudden, okay, we're in, let's go ahead and execute everything. They're they're taking, the benefit of learning your environment and how everything works, where your backups reside, and how they can impact those. Okay. Next. So to reiterate and talk a little bit more about the 3-2-1-1 rule that's out there, the additional one, that immutable copy. This is, it's a very important. 3-2-1 has been around since I can remember. Okay, so again, back to the Novell days, it was important to have that offsite copy of the data, right? And usually it was in Iron Mountain or something like that. And then you get the tapes back, and they may work, they may not work. They may have, on getting them back, I worked with a customer one time that they had sent their tapes to the Brazilian office, and unfortunately, when they came back, their tapes went through the X-ray machine, and some of them worked, some of them didn't work, and it was a long, arduous process for them to do that recoverability. So when we originally looked at air gap back then, your air gap data, your offsite data was, physically air gapped. Well, now we have logical air gap, and that's where things like, cloud comes into place, where you have different sets of credentials. It's not even connected at all. It's not part of the same environment from that perspective. So it is a logical air gap from within that. And then if they do get in, of course, the advantage of something like Wasabi and their storage lock is having that immutable copy of that data. Okay, so that if somebody does try to change it, they do try to delete it, they do try to encrypt it, that you can always go to an immutable snapshot, right, where they weren't able to do that from that perspective. So I know it's a little bit of redundant slide, but very, very important that kind of we understand that importance of immutability and all within that.
Next.
Yep. So I talked a little bit before about our data resilience platform, or I mentioned that we're going to speak to the data resilience platform. Think of these as 3 pillars, right? And your data or with is really residing on top of these 3 platforms, these 3 pillars. And if any one of these is, isn't there, okay, then you're really going to be at risk from that perspective. So from a prevention perspective, okay, Arcserve puts a lot of thought into, right, how are you going to protect your backups themselves from ransomware attacks? We're not necessarily in the security business. We recognize that we're not in the security business. It's not our strength. It's not what we've been doing for 40 years, right? So what do? We partner with companies that is their focus. Okay, that's where they're going to put that. So in our case, we partner with Sophos. We leverage their Intercept X for our backup solution, so that you can install that. It can protect your unified data protection solution we're going to talk about. It can protect the backup server itself, right? And protect that backup server, protect the backup data, so that if something does happen, right, some type of cyber threat, there's multiple ways it does that. We're not on the Sophos call today, so I'm not going to get into detail on that. But, it is, their number one focus. We're the point of contact for that. And that's always nice. You pick up the phone, you call Arcserve. You're not calling Sophos, but we're leveraging their knowledge, and their focus, right, to make sure that your data itself and your backup servers and those kind of things are going to be protected from that perspective. I've done a lot of installs, and I would just be amazed at times that people don't even, they don't change passwords. They don't put, antivirus on everything. And, so it's very important that you do prevent, you're not only protecting your endpoints and your servers, but you're also protecting your backups, your backup data, and those kind of things as well. From a protect perspective, well, if you're not protecting that different data that's residing in your environment, whether it be physical, virtual, cloud data, SaaS workloads, whatever it might be, well, you really have to have that kind of perspective. Okay, I need to have a solution that can protect my uh, my diverse environment. Okay, I don't typically go into an environment that's all virtual or it's all physical or it's all cloud, right? It's usually some type of hybrid environment. It's usually got some SaaS kind of workloads sitting out there as well. There is occasion when I do go into and it's all 100% one kind of environment, but typically, right, you need to have a solution that can, protect a hybrid environment from that. And then, of course, being able to get back that data, right? Being able to recover that data. The days of, hey, it takes 20 days to recover my data, or I need to get my tapes back from Iron Mountain. Then I need to restore them, and oh, they were incremental, so I need to put this tape in, and then I need to put that tape in. Those days, people expect, quick recovery. Okay, so the faster you can recover, the faster you can get that data back online or those applications online that's going to access that data, right, is really going to be key there. So again, if you don't have any one of these pillars, right, then everything starts to wobble for you. So it's very important that you have kind of the whole entire platform, resilience platform, and that's what we specialize in.
I
Next.
think you bring up a good point, though, because it takes an army, so to speak. On one end, you have best in class to be able to detect when you have an intrusion and those kind of things, best in class to have protected that data before that happened, and best in class storing that immutable in the cloud so that you can recover from that.
Absolutely. So, building upon that, we're going to focus today on our unified data protection product. That's what I'm going to speak to. That kind of falls in the mid market to the enterprise. I've seen it in some SMB customers. I've even seen some MSPs run it from that perspective. But Arcserve as a company, right? We really span really well from small business companies out there all the way up into, I'd say, lower enterprise with solutions that can provide continuous protection of systems to solutions like we're going to talk about today with our unified data protection product, which can be purchased as software. You can purchase an appliance. It can move that data up to Wasabi for you, as well as some other cloud vendors out there. None of them as good as Wasabi, of course, but well, no egress costs. I mean, that's big, right? So definitely, you want to make sure that you don't have any of those hidden kind of things, or oh, you wanted to get your data back. Well, let's talk. You don't want to have those kind of things at a high stress kind of point in time. As far as that goes, we still do have customers that need to go off to tape because of different compliance or different things like that. So I mean, we just still even support tape environments, and I think it was last year tape reported one of its biggest growths ever. So surprising as it is, but yeah, definitely you can't beat the ease of cloud, right? From that perspective as well. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide there.
Yeah, our partnership slide.
There you go. So from a partnership, right? What does really Arcserve and Wasabi bring to the table? Again, best in class, cost effective way to take and move that data, have that data be immutable, not just for our unified data protection product, but for our other solutions, our Shadow Protect, our Shadow Safe solutions as well. Native support, to be able to store copies of your backups in that hot cloud storage up in Wasabi. It's just an ideal kind of partnership as far as that goes from that. So, Rob, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, that upper right thing, I think the green check mark is really critical, that you guys are Object Lock certified. We have Object Lock so that when you do utilize your software to store data, protect it, and it's protected with us and it's locked and immutable, the bad guys can't get to it.
Fantastic. So, I mean, I'm not going to bore you guys with hey, here's all the features and functions of our backup solutions. We're going to talk a little bit about kind of the key things, right, as far as that goes. Peace and mind is where I'm going to focus a lot of this on because, when we talk about unified data protection or UDP, as I'm going to try to say for now on, when we talk about UDP, right, the very first thing is, you have to have confidence. For, since I've been in the industry, which is 97, which was when I first started more of a professional kind of working in the industry. Um, Really, the one key thing that I always learned was you never trust a backup, right? If if everything is at that point, everything's come crashing down. So Rob said, imagine if you will, all your data is gone. Okay. And some people out there may say, well, I've heard everything. Well, I have an exit plan, right? That's my concern, right? Or that's my approach. If everything goes, then I'll just start the resume approach or the retirement approach, as I've heard it before.
Resume
Um,
generating event.
yeah, there you go. Well, really, it comes down to how do you have that peace of mind? Okay. Well, the very first part, I notice this is like halfway through the list, but I'm talking about it first because I think it's that important. It comes down to testing, right? To 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 going through and testing your data, accessing your data that's in the cloud, testing the restores from there, being able to do all those kind of pieces so that if something does happen, you're like, okay, we got this. Now the sad fact is, that the days of such a large IT staff that we had, dedicated people that were backup people, and we had network people and desktop people and server people and database people, or admins, right? um, Admins are people. So just to clarify that, but those days really haven't been around for a while. Now, some organizations still have, you know, pieces of that, right, still reside. But when it comes to testing, right, you may have all the best intentions of the world, right? You may have, hey, I do this every Friday, or I do this, and I do different systems, I do that or whatever. And then what happens on Friday? Well, the network's down, the phone system's down, the CEO laptop, he lost it, and you need to order him a new laptop. Who knows what it might be from that perspective? But things tend to happen. And when do we put off the testing pieces? Usually till the end of the week, right? It's because we don't want to disrupt all the stuff during the week with that, right? So testing gets pushed to the side all too frequently, in my opinion. So having pieces within the product that can automate that testing so that you can be assured when you go through and you do have some type of event, okay, I know this has been tested. It doesn't replace you know, you doing your own testing because there's more to, hey, here's your data accessible, right? There's the processes and all of those, having that run book in place. But it is kind of a peace of mind. Okay, at least I know the data is going to be okay. All right, and that's where really I start to build off of is that peace of mind, that automated testing within that, and then of course everything else that we build on top of that, right? The the data can be secured, right? We have the ability to perform disaster recovery, have that cluster like availability of that data, right? Have that um, uh, data compressed and deduped so it's not taking up a lot of additional storage, right? We're off-siting that data. We're moving that data to Wasabi because you know what? Not every event is a ransomware event. I live in Florida, right? We have these big swirling clouds that hit, it seems like all too often, right? So, a hurricane hits, a tornado hits, you're in California, you know, um, wildfires, mudslides, brownouts, whatever it might be, right? Earthquakes, although I don't think we've had any big ones in a long time, but still, right? There's other things that happen besides that. So, being able to have that data offsite and be able to access that as well. Okay. So it's definitely going to be important. Go ahead and advance.
I think this checks the boxes for the report, the research report you commissioned, where so many, we said 76% of people, of mid-sized companies have experienced data loss. 45% say they could not recover after a loss, and only 24% basically have any kind of plan. So talking and doing the steps you talked about here, and testing, documenting, run booking is critical, but it is overlooked many times.
Yeah, and some a lot of times it's not overlooked, but people just don't know how to do it, right?
Yeah.
Or they don't know. Um, like I said, they get too busy, or they have a great plan, but then, the first thing I tell a company is when they start to ask about what to do is really you need to test your people, right? So
Yeah.
when you do a DR test, if you've normally got 5 people, one person's out, right? So now you try to do it with the 4 people, and somebody's got to pick up what that 5th person normally does. So
Yeah.
that relays back to your documentation, your run book, and those kind of things as well. But those are easy to manage if if you're not as concerned about your data and your data availability.
And I think the other piece to put a plug in for Wasabi is that you're not going to be penalized from a budget perspective from running those tests, bringing that data back, and seeing like, oh wow, I just blew the budget because I pulled it back 3 copies and I made some calls, and now I've doubled what I thought I was going to spend. So,
And that is a big plug. That's a big thing because I do remember the days where people would do DR tests and it'd be a once a year event that they would plan out because of the cost, because of the impact, because of all those different things. So, it's, if you can do that much more frequently, you don't have to worry about the cost impact of it. There's definitely an advantage to that.
perfect.
So when we talk about the unified data protection, the UDP solution, um, really your environment, whether you have Windows, Linux, whether or not you have data sitting out in NASs or SANs, whether that data be physical, virtual, right, whatever it might be, we really have an approach. I shouldn't say whatever. I hate absolutes, okay, because ultimately somebody will come up with something that, no, we don't support. I've not heard of that, and we can support it this way, but it's a little strange as far as that goes. Okay, so there's always something out there, but really we're going to protect most environments that are sitting out there in those hybrid environments. I mentioned before that our solution is to be deployed out as software. You can buy appliances for that. We do recommend that you do an on-prem backup, right? And it's great that your data's up in Wasabi, but if you could first do that restore from on-prem, it is always going to be faster. Okay, if you're going to do that disaster recovery from on-prem, it's always going to be faster from that perspective. And again, I'm speaking in absolutes, but I'll probably be out of the industry before before that's not true. Um, and then making sure that that data is secure. If you decide not to go with the Sophos solution, right, you could run a different security solution on there, but we can be the point of contact for that security if you do use the Sophos on there, from that side of things. We like to talk a lot. There's a puzzle when it comes to your data, right? It's the software. It's your software, your hardware, your security of that data. It's all of those different pieces together, and we like to be the whole puzzle, but a lot of times, we can just be a piece to that puzzle as well. Okay. We do have on-prem immutable solutions as well, right? For on-prem immutability, and of course, we do support public cloud. We support Wasabi, taking that data up to Wasabi and having that, low cost, highly available um, data up there as far as that goes too. Okay. All
Immutable.
right.
Don't forget immutable.
And immutable, absolutely.
Okay. Ready?
Ready.
Hey, we sort of talked about this slide already a lot.
And is this a build out slide?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay. All right. So when we talk about Arcserve and Wasabi, having that data immutable in your cloud store, right, it guarantees that, that data cannot be altered. And I think I heard before, not by anybody at Arcserve, not by anybody at Wasabi. that data is in an immutable state. It's locked, right, for amount of time that you determine. And, I can't say enough to that, right? Somebody tries to get to it, they try to do something to it, they can't. So if they do by some means, because I told you they're going to be in your environment for 90, 120 days or more, right? Kind of learning your environment, learning where your data sits, what different solutions do you have in place. They're going to try to figure out, okay, what backup targets do you have, right? So again, having that immutable cloud store is going to be super important for you. Okay. As far as your backup target, so there's a couple of different ways we could send data up to Wasabi, right? We could send it out as just a backup, destination. I talked about, we do recommend you do a on-prem first, but we could also then replicate that data and send that data up to Wasabi and have that data up there as well as a backup target itself, right? And then the features in the product where we can just make, certain files within your backups, right? We could send those up to that immutable cloud store as well.
It's funny. There's an urban legend again. I hearsay, friend of a friend of a friend, but somebody was testing out our immutability and played around with it and set some really incredible long immutability term on it, and then said, "Okay, undo it. Sorry." That's the whole purpose of it. So now they have that piece of storage for a long, way beyond our grandkids,
All righty, let's go to the next slide there. All right, so these slides, I think I'm going to go through them pretty quick. We've been speaking about immutable cloud store here and the importance of that. I hope that, we've kind of, brought that home, from this. So from an Arcserve perspective, either our Arcserve software or our 9000 series appliances on UDP, sending that data up to Wasabi, it doesn't have to go to the storage lock, right? But obviously there's big advantages to storage lock from that. Okay. And when we talk about that, so what are the benefits of that? Definitely, something that's ransomware resilient, lowering your total cost of ownership. You can still get that data back quickly, and it's going to help you hit the compliancy, out there that you might have. And it helps satisfy that 3, 2, 1 or 1, 1 kind of approach too.
Hey, Stacey, I want to make sure we leave time for questions, and you and I talk too much,
sure,
which is normal. So let's go through this a little bit faster so we can get to the questions. Yeah. I know there's a couple at least.
So we can, and I kind of spoke to this a little bit on the last slide, we can actually, configure a data store up in Wasabi. So when we do our backups, we can back up directly to Wasabi. The benefits there are the data can be deduplicated, from within that side of things. So it can use less space. So we do have the capabilities with our latest release, UDP 9, to be able to do that and leverage that as a data store itself. Next. And then, being able to take and move, not entire backups, but if we want to move files or file archives, so copies of files or archive files, we have the capability of that built into our unified data protection solution as well.
Next. Perfect. So we have a lot of resources here. It's in the resource tab of the Bright Talk here to learn more about that, but you can get additional information about the things we talked about today, about the tools to protect your data. And then in addition to that, if you want to learn more about Wasabi, you can go to there and try it for 30 days. We have a partner page. Again, you can click on to look at the partnership between Arcserve and Wasabi. And then finally, it's not in there, but we have a cost calculator. And I think that's really great to be able to see how much data you want to store and being able to look at the comparison based on different amounts of egress and API calls to show the value, which is huge, of the cost savings of Wasabi compared to some of the other alternatives out there. So that QR code, it can be scanned. And I think that is, it's us. If you want to learn more, you can reach out to us. at the email addresses there to learn more if you have any questions. And I think with that, we go to some questions, Isabel?
Yeah. Thanks, Stacey and Rob. Isabel Friedman here with Wasabi, gonna help us run through the questions we have here. First, I see, how does this compare to using Arcserve's UDP Cloud Hybrid?
I think there's going to be a lot of similarities, right? But as far as Cloud Hybrid has no egress cost as well from within that. But really, what stands out is Wasabi does have storage lock and immutability, and our Cloud Hybrid today does not offer that. Now, there's obviously some features that we do offer, but if you're looking for immutable cloud storage, I would recommend, Wasabi in that case.
Great. And yeah, folks can continue to submit a couple questions. I know we're running a little bit over, but we'll give people a minute. Also see, how do I enable object lock with Arcserve and Wasabi? And is there any additional cost when I'm enabling object lock?
So there's no additional cost, but Stacey can talk about how to enable it within their software.
So within our software, we're targeting a target, right? So what you would actually do is within your Wasabi portal, you would choose to have that be object locked, and we would just point to that. It'd be transparent to the Arcserve solution that you're object locked within there.
Great. I'll just remind the audience that within the attachment section below, you'll be able to access some of the joint collateral that we have, as well as some free trials. And we'll also be following up via email. I don't see any other questions coming in. So Rob and Stacey, did you have any final remarks before we log off?
No, I want to thank Stacey. It was a great conversation. I want to thank the audience for taking the time to learn more about it. And please feel free to reach out to us or go to the resources and see the value of both of the solutions and how together they're even better.
And I will second that. It's definitely, again, it's having that whole pillar in place. And I think, adding something like Wasabi can just strengthen that resilience platform for you.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.